You know, I knew I was gonna get to the show eventually, but I had this, small glimmer of hope that I might be able to skip over it, especially since I reviewed Ah My Buddha several months ago, and their stories are fairly similar. But no! Love Hina is like the original, or at least it's the one that popularized having multiple quirky female characters surround a dim-witted male protagonist in romantic tension that never goes anywhere. Oh hey look! I think I just accurately described the show in a nutshell. Well then, I guess my job's done, bye! Yeah, I know that's not enough. Even if it was, I suppose that little description that I gave is a bit on the negative side. And that's not really fair, is it? So I suppose, since I'm here, might as well do this properly, right? Ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Class Reflection. Today, one of the most popular entries in the harem genre, Love Hina. Let's jam. The plot behind Love Hina is rather easy to grasp. Let's start off with our lead protagonist, Keitaro. Keitaro has a promise that he made way back when he was a child. He had a childhood friend to whom he made this promise, and the promise was that one day the two of them would be reunited at Tokyo University. Fast forward to the present day, where Keitaro has spent the last 2 years attempting to be accepted into Tokyo U to fulfill his promise. You know, to a girl he barely even remembers. And I say attempting because both years he has failed horribly. This seems to be a common thing in some anime I've noticed, where Tokyo U gets put up on a pedestal, and failing to get into it is like a major plot point for several shows.
I got rejected! I failed! I'm gonna be a bum for a year!
So as one would guess, Keitaro's family isn't too pleased that he keeps failing to get into the university and probably thinks he should just move on. So he gets sent to his grandmother's apartment building in Hinata, where, little does he know, she has suddenly gone on vacation and left him in charge as building manager. Now why would this be a problem? Because surely being an apartment manager seems to be something that is fairly reputable, right? Well, it just so happens that Hinata Apartments is female only. And there we have our protagonist surrounded by several quirky females. That was quick. So now that he's manager, he gets to sort out many different problems that occur in his new tenants' lives, while, also continuing to study yet again for another entrance exam. And here is where my biggest problem for not only this show, but a lot of entries in this genre come in. And it might not bother everyone, but because it bothers me, I feel it needs mentioning. The draw for this show is its style of humor, and if you are not one to find this style of humor entertaining, then the entire series will either bore you to death or just totally grate on your nerves. So what kind of humor am I talking about? Well, it's a style of physical comedy where our main character gets put into a situation unwillingly where, out of context, it looks like he's a total pervert. This moment is then immediately witnessed by one of our female characters, who then proceeds to beat the living crap out of our main character without actually knowing the full story. But then you could argue that because the female characters only get that moment that is out of context, that they are totally justified in their actions, however unfortunate they may be for our main protagonist. And in some of the cases you would be correct, but Love Hina takes it to a whole different level. Let me give you an example. Keitaro is fully bound, in rope, and our female cast witnessed him being kidnapped against his will. Yes, there is a female character sitting on top of him in a situation that could be considered sexual if it were not for the fact that both of them still have their clothes on. But surely, one could see that, even out of context, that Keitaro is not at fault here. He is tied up. Apparently not. Personally, I don't find that funny. To me, it just seems, sort of dumb. I get caught up in the extreme lack of realism in it, and I just spend more time face-palming than I do laughing. An extreme amount of face-palming and an extreme lack of laughing. But if you're not like me and you find that sort of thing hilarious, then you will absolutely love this show because that humor is everywhere. Not an episode goes by that Naru does not punch Keitaro and blast him off Team Rocket style for one reason or another. Almost as if she uses that as a sign of affection. Which leads me to another point. The romances that go nowhere. Now, I guess I should point out that even though most people, including myself, will tell you that Love Hina is your stereotypical harem, it does things sort of differently in that not all of the main female characters are romantically involved with our lead protagonist Keitaro. Just most of them, at least only for an arc. It's not like this is Sword Art Online or anything. Burn! As with most harem shows, all the female characters have a particular trait or character archetype that they just completely own. But beyond that, stuff. There is rarely any expanding of anyone's character in any regard, though I will give major points to Love Hina for having the original archetypes for some characters go off in some completely weird directions. Starting off with our quick rundown, we have Kitsune, the sly and scheming woman who does not fancy our Keitaro herself, but loves to construct mischief at his expense, especially where romance is concerned. Next is Motoko, also referred to as the Kendo Girl, for her usual attire and devotion to the martial arts, specifically the sword. While one may think that with her warrior training she would be the most level-headed member of the building, she is instead one of the quickest to react to any bad situation, suddenly making it very painful for most parties involved. And by parties, I mean Keitaro. Then there is Shinobu, the rather young and shy elementary student who moves into the apartment as sort of their resident cook, but also as someone who has a very obvious crush on Keitaro, which one would assume only went nowhere because of her rather young age, which, to be fair, is understandable. Then there is Kaola Su, the token complete weirdo character who seems to be a sort of Indian version of Cowboy Bebop's Edward, though one should question if India is actually where she originated from. Finally, there is the real main female protagonist, Naru, whose traits include being the biggest damn tsundere character in the entire show. Beautiful yet short-tempered, Naru is also attempting to get accepted into Tokyo U, and for a large percentage of the series, she acts as sort of a tutor to Keitaro in hopes that they can both get in together. But she is also usually the first to belt him one when the opportunity arises. I suppose the best thing about the characters, and Naru specifically, is that none of them are portrayed as perfect. There is no angelic butterfly to act as the main romantic interest. All of the female characters have flaws in some way, and sure, they don't develop outside their given role, but the roles themselves came with flaws. And I applaud that. The animation for Love Hina is slightly interesting because compared to modern day work, it's rather bland. But this is because it's from a time when digital art was only just starting to really replace cell animation as the method of choice for animators. More interesting though is where the animation came from, and well, actually it came from multiple studios, but the one studio that is most prominent is Production IG. Now, of course, Love Hina was created before Production IG went off and created the Ghost in the Shell standalone complex series that has animation that's even on par with things that are still coming out today. But looking at Love Hina, I can really appreciate where they came from, because I know where they have been since. For its time, it's not that bad, and especially when you consider the material, anything more might have been overdoing it. Ugh. I can't believe this part, actually. You see, I do recall watching this show back when I was in high school and rather enjoying it, and back then, we almost certainly watched it dubbed. But now, man, I can't stand this dub. It comes from an older time, and unfortunately, it just does not hold up anymore. I've heard some people say that this dub is one that you just need to adjust to, as most of the voices are very similar to others done by these same actors, which is one of my major problems with it. But then I would argue that, should you have to adjust to a dub just to find it somewhat bearable? I don't think so. Like when it came out, I'm sure it was a lovely dub for the people who did not want to read subtitles. I was part of that group back in my early days as an anime fan, but now, yeah, no. I cannot recommend watching it, unless, of course, you do have a legitimate reason of why you cannot watch sub. Most of the incidental music is rather insignificant, and in fact, the most noteworthy song of the entire show is its opening, an industrial-style track with a melody that will most likely get stuck in your head for a few days until you can pry it out with something else. Good luck with that, though. So here's the thing, I don't totally hate this show as you may or may not think. I'm just hugely conflicted. I have these memories from when I was just starting out watching anime in high school and absolutely loving this show. I remember being completely jealous of one of my friends who went out and bought the entire manga for Love, Hina one time at Anime North, and I could not, and I couldn't even read his copies, because some friend he was. I also remember seeing episodes of the show from back then and laughing my head off because I thought they were hilarious. But now I look and all I can see are these logic problems and the points in the show that really just do not make sense. And you have to admit, there are a few. Have years of reviewing just made me jaded? Am I just like a cynical asshole now? Do I consider everything to be shit? I don't think so. I think it's just that my tastes have changed over time. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just something that happens. Hell, I remember a time when I thought that the original Fate Stay Night was the greatest anime that had ever existed on our planet. I was wrong, or at least I think so now, but that time did exist. Those were definitely not the days. Anyways, and so I have meticulously calculated values for the categories of story, characters, animation, sound, and my own personal enjoyment, which after beating the crap out of it and launching it into the Sky Team Rocket style, has me awarding Love, Hina with an overall score of 5.8 out of 10, and a recommendation to stream it rather than buy. Now with that said, if you really like it after you've watched a few episodes, then be my guest and buy the thing, because you will most likely love the hell out of it. It just really depends on if you can enjoy that style of humor or not, and if you can't, well then I guess you're like me then. Bah, humbug! At the time of this video, Love, Hina has been licensed by Funimation Entertainment, from who you can pick up the series on DVD, unless, you happen to find a really old Bandai copy lying around, as they were the original licensors, but good luck with that. For alternate anime recommendations, I point you towards the anime adaptation of another story by the same mangaka, Maho Sensei Negima, or just Negima as most people like to call it. And also towards another romantic comedy that is only a little bit, okay, it's a lot dated, but it's called Ah My Goddess, not to be confused with Ah My Buddha, because there are major differences there. Hopefully between all of these shows you should find something to your liking. And that's it from me. Please subscribe if you liked the video, follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined, and until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.